chance to hear it, so let her tell it. People on the streets say Sabrina speaks. Tune into the show, she will let you know. Tell all your friends and family. Real talk is no joke. You get the news straight up from grassroots and concerns. You hear some people gone. So tell all your friends to tune in to
Good evening, Cayman. I'm Sabrina Turner, and welcome to Sabrina Speaks, your daily dose of clarity, truth, and community insights. Every weekday from 5 to 6:30 p.m., we're tackling the issues that affect you. From national headlines to grassroots concerns. Whether you're in traffic or winding down your day, this is your chance to hear it straight and speak your truth. So buckle up, Cayman. We're not holding back.
This is the show. We gotta let you know. Now we got to go.
And now, here's Sabrina.
Yes, good evening, Cayman. And to our Sabrina Speaks family tuning in from near and from far. Sorry for that little delay there. I must say I'm feeling much better today. Thank God I sweat like a bull. That means it's whatever the heck it was is definitely making its way out of my system. But tonight we are tackling a subject that is as uncomfortable as it is necessary, and that is workplace bullying. Now, bullying doesn't always look like raised voices or obvious threats. Sometimes it's stubble, exclusion, intimidation, or even the misuse of identity. And here in Cayman, we have seen how nationality can be weaponized, with some employees using their local status to belittle or even isolate those who are not Caymanian. And on the other side, employers themselves may use the pressure of today's cost of living crisis to bully both local and foreign staff, cutting hours, unfairly threatening job security, and or exploiting vulnerabilities. Yes, this is not just a Cayman issue. Ladies and gentlemen, around the world, rising costs are fueling workplace tensions, but tonight we are going to explore it from our perspective, right here at home, and while also connecting to the global picture, because that too is a reality. And I want you to be a part of this conversation. And have you felt the pressure, excluded, or even intimidated to even work because of where you're from or because of the economic stress that you may be facing? Call in and share your story. This is not just a Caymanian voices. This is everyone who is living, residing, working here in our beautiful Cayman Islands, because bullying thrives in silence, but it weakens when we shine a light on it as well. I'm Sabrina, and welcome to another episode of Sabrina Speaks, Voices of the Islands, Conversations for the World, the podcast where voices rise, stories unfold, and inspiration takes center stage. The content you're about to hear, including any discussions or opinions from myself, guests, and or participants, is intended solely for informational and entertainment purposes. It is not a substitute for professional, legal, medical, or financial advice. So I encourage you to consult with a qualified professional for your specific concerns. Now, Bridge Media Limited and all of its affiliates disclaims all liability for any decisions or actions taken in reliance on the information presented. 345-936-8255 is the number to call and be a part of the discussion. It's always very lively, and I'm seeing it even getting more active and livelier. What I will remind you, respect is always due. Yes, welcome, 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 one and all. And you know how we do it here. I like you to know what's happening, what's going on here. Something bumped into this. Give me 1 minute. How that looks. Yeah, there we go. Much better. Thank you so much. Let's give you and let you know what's happening with the weather, because I'm hearing, yes, thanks and compliments of the Cayman Islands National Weather Service, that we have a northwester, yes, knocking on our doors. The forecast for tonight calls for fair skies along with light and variable winds, and smooth seas are expected across the Cayman area for the next 24 hours. And that's due to a slack pressure gradient. Now, fair skies with a 10% chance of showers, temperatures will fall to the low to 70s, and winds will be light and variable, less than 5 knots. Now, seas will be smooth with wave heights of less than 2 feet. Sun will rise. Sun will set this evening at 6:06 and sunrise tomorrow morning at 7:02. Now, the outlook, as I said, is for an increase in cloudiness and showers late Thursday as a northwester approaches the Cayman area. That will bring with it fresh winds, and rough seas are expected on Friday associated with this feature. Northerly and westerly swells are also expected, and a small craft advisory will be in effect from Friday as rough seas and westerly swells will be expected. Yes, so there you have it right here of what you could be experiencing in the Cayman Islands in the next couple of days. We always welcome those northwesters, especially this time of the year. And I for one, welcome it, because those, when it hot. I don't know about you, but I like this time of the year when we actually get northwesters, don't you? There we go. Yes, we're live on CMR. There we go. There we go. We're live. I was just making sure all of my links went out. So there we go. Yep. I didn't have anybody showing up or popping up on MySpace today for birthday. So please, still, I am celebrating. I it is my opportunity to still send birthday wishes and celebrations out to all of those who I may have not come up on my radar celebrating a birthday today. Happy birthday, happy anniversary, happy whatever it is you want to celebrate. Happy life. Happy. I am feeling better today. I must say, much, much better than the past 48 hours, which were rough. Oh God, it were rough. But yeah, no birthday shout outs, but it gives me an opportunity to also shout out to the Slay Beauty Bar and the crew. And not because Anto is not there. I remember you too. I am more than overdue, long overdue. Do not zoom in, Carol. Just don't do it. Yeah, I'm calling you out. But it's good to be back with you here on this Wednesday. And I am happy to get into this topic, but there's so much, oh my God, going on in the world and in the region. You know, we got to do the headlines as well, but not before acknowledging those of you who are actually commenting to let me know that you're here. Marshall, good evening to you as well. It is a pleasure to always have you the front of the class. Damian Henry is also with us. It's so good to see y'all. Connie Bonnie. Yes. And Jimbo is ready. Oh, yeah, my boy's ready. Let's talk bullying in the workplace, but not before tackling what's going on in the world. Jimbo, I know you disconnect, but you know what? We're just going to keep it real with what's happening here. And just before going live, I told you, have you heard segment, which is actually, I've been getting some good feedback on that. With what's happening here, regional and that sort of stuff. It's a lot going on, regional and around the world. It's just dominating everything. Hey, Abby, how you doing, girl? I hope good to have you with us. Always like your feedback as well. So yeah, what we're seeing, breaking news today, and what I'll be showing you is breaking pretty much in real time. And it's almost like I can't keep up. Every 5 minutes or seconds seems like You're hearing bing, bing from one media. And again, that is the nature of what I do. And I try to keep abreast with everything that's going on and highlight it definitely to you. Some are hard hitting, some are international, some are on the other side of the world, but there are far reaching implications with the term geopolitical tensions and environment that we are now living in, that even though we're in the Western hemisphere, anything right now, we're all realizing every day based on conversations how connected we all are. But breaking today, we see where the United States and Denmark remain locked in a fundamental disagreement over Greenland's future, even at high-level talks in Washington. And what the reports are coming out are saying that Danish officials insist that Greenland's sovereignty under the Kingdom of Denmark is non-negotiable, while the United States leaders continue to float ideas that challenge that territory's integrity. Now, we see where today Danish and Greenlandic foreign ministers met with the United States Vice President J.D. Vance and Secretary of the States Marco Rubio. And the president continues to push the idea that the United States should take control of Greenland. Now, what we've seen is that the foreign minister, Lars Rasmussen, said any proposal that undermines Denmark's territorial integrity is totally unacceptable. And Greenland's foreign minister, Vivian Motzfeldt, emphasized that the island has its own limits and interests. Now, Greenland is, of course, what we're seeing is that the world's largest island, rich in natural resources and strategically important for Arctic security. Now, the U.S. sees Greenland as a vital NATO and defense, while Denmark insists sovereignty is not up for negotiation. Again, this is being repeated. It's like we're just going to repeat what we are. Quite interesting how those conversations and what we're getting based on multiple media sources are reporting. Now, this isn't just about territory. It's about national pride when it comes to the persons in Greenlanders. It's their national pride, sovereignty, and definitely global power dynamics. So this story, as we know, is still continue to unfold. But one thing is clear is that Greenland has become the latest flashpoint in global politics. And the disagreement is far from resolved based on the latest reports coming out of that meeting today. But we will keep you updated of everything that's happening there if you're already not getting the updates yourself in real time. Also, have you heard, this was interesting, and it hit home for me because for those who really are close to me will know my mother died at 45 with leukemia. And this is why when I saw this, I'm like, oh my God, yeah, this hurts. And I'm happy for this young man. When it hit home for me, it hurt then, and it continues to hurt, but I'm really happy for this gentleman. BBC News reports that a 28-year-old leukemia patient in the United Kingdom has just become the first to receive a breakthrough treatment on the NHS. And what he has described as a fantastic and very sci-fi. So what it is, right, is that there's a breakthrough in assisting persons who have been diagnosed with leukemia. And this patient, whose picture is on the screen, is known as Oscar Murphy, has an aggressive form of blood cancer. And he was treated at Manchester Royal Infirmary with a revolutionary therapy called CAR-T, C-A-R-T-T. Now, this CAR-T is often called a living drug because what doctors there are saying, the doctors re-engineered a patient's own immune cells to hunt down and destroy cancer cells. And what this is doing is that it marks the first time the therapy has been available through the NHS, that's the United Kingdom's public facilities, making it cutting-edge cancer treatment accessible beyond private trials. What the findings of this is saying that CAR-T has shown remarkable success in patients who previously had no other options. And it's part of a wider shift towards personalized medicine where treatments we are seeing now are tailored to each patient's biology. Can you imagine that? Now, please note, It's expensive. It's also complex, but potentially life-saving for aggressive blood cancers. And we know that there are a number of these disorders out there. But the UK's rollout, what they're doing with this rollout, shows how national health systems can make futuristic therapies accessible. Kudos to them for seeing that. Now, what we're seeing is that you can see that smile on Oscar's face is that he calls it's sci-fi. He's calling it sci-fi because it captures a sense of hope and wonder around this therapy. And for patients with aggressive leukemia, and this CAR T can mean the difference between exhausting conventional treatments and a real chance at going into remission. Now, why again I said this hit home to me on more than one front is that, of course, I lost my mom to leukemia, but it also brings it home. And here in Cayman, and we don't yet have access to therapies yet, because this is, of course, as Oscar calls it, sci-fi. It's new, it's breaking. Therapies like CAR T locally, but patients often travel abroad, we know for a fact, to the UK and to the United States, and for advanced cancer care. So this breakthrough highlights the importance of healthcare access and affordability in small island nations. We have seen persons who are trying to navigate even cynical here, who just wants that hope, that chance. And communication is so key when it comes to accessing healthcare, knowing how to navigate yourself around if you're a cynical patient, or knowing your rights when it comes to insurance, which we've had our experts on here, to be able to actually get access, and it's hope. So it raises questions, how do we ensure that Caymanians can benefit from, let's say, cutting edge treatments? Should our health system look more into partnerships, which I know they do, they have it. They are in great conversations and dialogue with multiple facilities, not only locally here with other private facilities, but also international, based on what is available from what's not available. And once people have a fighting chance and they go through the necessary, get the referrals and that sort of stuff, we do our best here to make sure we give the access. So, because when the world moves forward, we're seeing this. We need to make sure that our community definitely is not left behind. And it's good to have advocates who can actually know the system. It's good to just understand it. And we continue to educate. I know as the former minister, that was my life, is just accessing or helping people navigate the referral process, getting in contact with the CMO and all that sort of stuff. It can be nerve-wracking. That's life. But this story just isn't about one patient in the UK, which is why it hit home to me, because now people definitely have a chance. But it's about the future of medicine, where we're going, and it could be for other treatments as well. And whether small communities like ours will also have a chance to share in that hope as well. So if you didn't know, there you do. Congratulations, Oscar, all the way here from the Cayman Islands. And I wish you all the best. Look at that smile. That's priceless. That's a smile of hope. There we go. Somebody gave him a chance and he decided to just go for it. There you go. Also, have you heard again? And on my way up to the studio, I heard it flashing on the news before I shut off the TV downstairs. But definitely by the time I got up here and on my screen, I saw where Forbes was reporting that the United States may strike Iran in the next 24 hours. Here we go again. Like, what the heck? Now, this is breaking international news, and it could have major consequences. Here we go again for global security. Yes. Yeah. And what we're saying is that the US officials are signaling that military actions against Iran is possible in the immediate term. Now, what we're noticing, based on all news media sources, and especially international sources, is that the tension follows escalating disputes over Iran's regional activities and nuclear ambitions. And a strike within 24 hours would mark a sharp escalation in already strained relationships, as we can see. Now, what has also put some more truth towards this breaking news is that the US, other media sources are also reporting that the US has begun evacuating some personnel from its air base in Qatar and as a precaution, as tensions in Iran, as I stated earlier, one continues to rise. Now, this military escalation and evacuation signal preparation for possible conflict. And these things have actually been spoken about more so in the past couple of hours, but this is the first time now that it's in your face, hitting a number of news sites of this imminent reality. And we're seeing the economic impact, should that become a reality, is that here we go again. Oil prices could actually spike, affecting global fuel costs and diplomatic fallout again. We're seeing where allies and rivals will be watching how the US manages this crisis. And some say, well, why are you getting there? Why? I got to report it, because Middle East stability, yes. Any US strike could destabilize the region further, affecting allies and rivals alike, as I said earlier. And when you look at it, Iran is a major oil producer, and conflicts could send global fuel prices soaring. We're seeing it here. It's impacting our utility bills. It's impacting the cost of freight and shipping and all that sort of stuff. We heard that on an earlier show this morning on Sandra's show, where the cost of goods over in our sister islands is through the roof. And one of the things is the shipping cost. Now, I'm quite sure if those people get an opportunity to defend themselves, who operate these cargo things, they will tell you probably what's driving up that cost. I don't know. I'm not speaking on their behalf. Is probably the cost of fuel. So geopolitical ripple is that Russia, China, and European nations are definitely watching closely, as any strike could reshape alliances and trigger, of course, wider conflict. Now, right here at home, we always have to bring it home. We may feel far removed from the Middle East tensions, but we can see what's happening here in the region in another story that I'm going to be bringing up here. But global events like this affects us directly through oil prices, shipping costs, as I alluded to, and definitely it could have an impact even on our financial markets. And what we're seeing is that, yes, there we go. I'm going to actually save this and put this up to make it relevant with what I'm saying. So you guys know I'm not talking craziness. It is the actual truth, what I'm saying, out of another source here. There we go. Yeah, that could mean, here we go again. Another confirmation that, a strike on Iran could mean higher fuel bills, more expensive imports, economics uncertainty, and trickle down definitely to everyday life right here in the Cayman Islands, because global events like this affects us directly. But again, here we go. Thanks again for sharing that with me. China warns on Iran breaking. This is breaking news. China says it will protect Iran if the US attacks. So here we go again. Another global big player in this geopolitical space. But this is a developing story, ladies and gentlemen. And the next 24 hours could be pivotal, 24, 48, 72. Once there is a risk, every second actually is pivotal. But we'll keep watching on how this unfolds, because what happens, as I said, in the Middle East doesn't stay there. It touches all of us, even here in the Western Hemisphere. Of course it does. So thank you very much for sharing that image with me. Yes. And look, another thing that hits home, and I know some of you are going to be worried as heck. You might have seen the story, and if you haven't, I'm going to try to bring this in a synopsis for you. And this has also been backed. CMRTV.com has done an article on the US visas being halted right now. And guess what? Some of our SIDS, small island development states, are in there. And guess who was also in there? Jamaica. Even the Gleaner has it up there that Jamaica now is one of 75 countries that is included in this. And the United States has announced a halt on these immigrant visas for 75 countries, including Jamaica, as we can see here. And the full list has not yet been released, but early reports suggest that it spans Africa, the Middle East, Asian, Latin America, Russian, and even some of the Somali islands development states, as we can see here, one of them being Jamaica. Now, what we have seen, and so far, what is local is that our Cayman Islands authorities confirmed that we are not affected. We're not on this list. But with no United States embassy here, and we know how reliant we are on US visas, is that we travel to Jamaica. What happens in a case like this when Jamaica is named on one of those as one of those countries, and we have no embassy here, and we remain dependent on regional consular services, and we are told here in the Cayman Islands to go to Jamaica. Now, the suspension really in the broader context of what this means is that it's focusing right now on immigrant visas, green cards, permanent residency applications, but tourist, students, and business visas are not included, okay? And the rationale given at this time is a review of vetting and public charge rules. Now, while headlines focus on the big geopolitical rivals, the United States visa halts is hitting, as we can see right here closer to home, because Jamaica and right across the Cayman Islands is on that list. And from what we're seeing on regional reports, the policy affects a long list, as I said, of small island development states that with deep ties to the US. And named among those, including Jamaica, is Antigua and Barbuda, Bahamas, Barbados, Belize, Dominica, Haiti, Jamaica, Grenada, St. Kitts and Nevis, St. Lucia, St. Vincent, and the Grenadines. Now, that means much of the English-speaking Caribbean now faces an immigrant visa freeze. And like I said, even though the Cayman Islands isn't here, what does that mean for expected delays in processing going to Cayman should you be caught into this? Now, these countries have strong people-to-people ties with the United States, some of our regional jurisdictions, families, education, healthcare, business connections. The operative word is connections. And what these freezes disrupt is migration pathways, families reunification. You go over there to visit, just get a breather, and long-term employment opportunities as well. Now, it also risks straining diplomatic relationship between Washington possibly and Caribbean governments. So Cayman, even though we're not there on the list, but it highlights the fact that because we rely on Jamaica U.S. Embassy in Kingston for visa processing, and with Jamaica being affected, Caymanians, as I said, could possibly face indirect delays or complications in accessing U.S. visas. What this does, though, my friends, is that this highlights Cayman's vulnerability without a U.S. embassy, so to speak, presence on island, and we're always dependent on regional hub. Again, this is another story that is still developing. However, it reminds us that even when Cayman isn't directly targeted, that global policy shift can expose our very own vulnerabilities. And the key here is that access, matters. And without an embassy here, we should even be more vigilant and keep informed with our local media sources for further information and developments on this. Yeah, so my love, this isn't just about geopolitics from what we're seeing here. It's about families, in this case, communities, and everyday lives across the Caribbean. And for Cayman, again, I can't say this enough. It's a reminder of how global decisions can ripple right into our own region. Yeah, so it's real, guys. It's almost second by second we're seeing these sweeping headlines and realities. I know there was another thing of the United States and freedom of speech with the UK. I didn't get into that, but I will actually look at that other headlines as well. Thank you, my friend, for sharing that with me earlier on. I will look into that, but feel free, 345-936-8255. Share that clipping with me and let's see what we can do with it as well to be a part of this conversation. But it's good to have all of you for those of you who are just joining us. Abby says it's hilarious that he said he wants Greenland, so Russia isn't a neighbor, as if Alaska isn't already their neighbor. You know, I saw that last night on a sitcom, and I just chuckled to myself, and it's like, one of those moments. Yeah, you got to know geography to really figure it out. And it was quite comical when somebody actually do it as it's one of those late night ones. They were doing it as their opening thing. And Abby, you're quite right. Jimbo Norris says, my sister passed away less than 3 years ago from a rare form of leukemia. It was painful to watch her dwindle away. More painful for her, however, she was a fighter and a champion till the bitter end. So was my mom. And I'm actually going to be 52 this year, Jimbo, and I can't believe I've outlived my mom. Yeah, I was actually scared. I think I shared the story with you guys once upon a time that I was scared to reach 45, 46. I was just petrified because I know I lost her at such a young age. And it was like, oh my God. Yeah, it was in the back of my mind all the time. But here I am. I give God thanks. I do my best to try and keep healthy, even though some of you know what my loves are, but everything in moderation, just as you said, Jimbo, everything in moderation. Barbara G, good evening. It's good to have you here with us, to always have you on board. I hope you're doing fine. Yes, thank you. Yes, she was very young. Mox Jock. Bullying comes in many forms, more stubble than some are even aware of, and the perpetrators are extremely sick individuals. Thank you for that comment. Welcome to the show. Harry, welcome. Good evening to you. Yes. I mean, just totally ridiculous. You can't just ban people from 75. Really? That's almost funny. You see what the man's doing. You do whatever he wants, it appears. Yeah, it's all for us. Harry, I could be honest with you. What it's showing is the strength in numbers and how many of the small island developing states and also world leaders, how much who are willing to stand up to protect their sovereignty and to just band together. We know that here in the Caribbean, we are limited because we're so small, but we're giants in numbers. So the UK controls foreign policy, so does the Cayman Islands. Ever ask the British Foreign Office to do something for them? Or is most of it done through Jamaica? The British Foreign Policy, so does the Cayman Islands. So the UK controls, okay. Cayman Islands have a British Foreign Office, something for them, or most of it is done through Jamaica. And there are good relationships between the deputy governor and the Foreign and Commonwealth Office. But once it comes to U.S. visas, we were always directed to Kingston office. Yeah, we do have a U.S. consular here, for the record, but their services are limited to American citizens. But they don't process visitors' visas, student visas, that sort of stuff. We're referred. Our place to go to, unless otherwise instructed, would be between Kingston is where we go, but sometimes we refer to Nassau, Bahamas. Put the Cayman government just asked London to do it instead of Kingston. Let's see. I'm quite sure our powers that be are doing what they have to do. Connie, you something else, Live happy. The Iranian people deserves freedom. They do not want to be Muslim. They know Islam is false. They have been saying it for years. This is the young generation fighting for freedom and water. Freedom and water. Okay, live happy. Connie Bonnie, what a bangarang. I can actually hear you saying that now. I can't help. Real Michelle says, hey, how are you? Welcome to the show. I can't help but find it very interesting that Cayman is excluded from the list. I wonder why. What I'm hearing is we are British Overseas Territory jurisdiction. That could be the reason, but I'm not speaking on behalf of any of the powers that be. Thank God we're not. So far, so good. And I guess we are, I don't know. It'll be interesting. But this is one time you're glad that you're a BOTC. The real Michelle, this is one of the things that that hit home when I saw that breaking news when we said whether or not independence or remain a dependent to the UK as a BOTC. When you look at those countries in the small island states, no BOTCs on it, right? They're all independent CARICOM. Some of them are CARICOM, if not all. So it's a bigger question at hand, and it all depends on, I guess, on how you play the game. Speaking for those at the very powerful, the very, very top, you just give God thanks that we are guests playing by the rules and we're doing what you're supposed to do, not to say we're pointing the fingers at others, but I'm quite sure there's a bigger reason behind who's on it from who's not. We just have to make sure that we keep our eyes on it and give God thanks every day for us remaining in the good graces and being blessed to be in the Cayman Islands. And it also speaks, I feel, a lot of the governance that we have, some structures. And this is why a lot of people speak out when they see certain things slipping away, even though it's a few in number and we say people are scared to speak up. But when we see things going one way, against constitutional right, against our rights and privileges, people have a voice to speak out. And that's what we should be doing to defend what we have here. But this is one time I am hearing it from even some of my seniors here and those who I have close connection and maintain relationships with me, is that, boy, thank God, here we are. It's almost like we ducking it. That's what we've been doing, the Cayman Islands. We ducking it. Anybody from the Caribbean know that song? Yeah, it's like that's what we're doing. So we got to give God thanks for being here in the Cayman Islands. Proud to be Caymanian is one of those songs now that we play with our national anthem, as all of the turmoil pretty much around us is becoming a reality. And here we are, still standing firm and strong. And I thought I saw an article where it shows where our surplus in or revenues or something. I don't quote me on it, but whatever it is, financially, this jurisdiction has outdone regionally. I think I saw a number of 20% versus some of our other counterparts in the region, small island development states. So things are looking good for us. What we have to do to maintain that is going to take everybody's part. And this is why I thought it was topical today, because as we see hard times, the conversations are still abound with cost of living, how we can get it down. And then it brought us into some stories that are coming out in regards to bullying in the workplace. Yeah, so there we go. But 345-936 is the number to call and be a part of the discussion. And again, welcome to those who have just joined us. Welcome back to another episode today of Sabrina Speaks. We got a hard stop at 7 because we got sports coming on at 7, and I do not want to cut into anybody else's time. And today we're going to be tackling a tough but important issue, and we're talking about bullying in the workplace. Not the schoolyard type. Sometimes it may feel like that, but the stubble, sometimes harsh ways it shows up amongst adults right here in Cayman. This talk is not just for Caymanians. This is for anyone. When I say Cayman, I'm not labeling a nationality to it. You're able, you're willing, if you're welcome to call in, participate, speak your mind. And even if you have suggestions, share them right here, as long as it's done respectfully. And we will maintain decorum here because everybody's opinions matters. But I want us to look at it from two angles. How employees bullies each other. Yes, because that's a reality. And how employers sometimes bully staff under the weight of economic pressures. So that's the angle I would love for us to take it from. And you're all welcome to participate and join me, because this is not a me. This is us. And this is why it's important for me to hear from all of you at all times. Hey, Miss Lucille over there in the UK, good evening to you. Thank you so much. Thank you very much, Miss Lucille. All the best to you, and I hope you're doing well. I know it's cold over there. Real Michelle say, keep ducking with both eyes wide open. Voices are heard, hard to hear amidst the noise. and false veil of this thing called freedom of speech. That was exactly one of those articles that was sent. I was tagged in on Facebook, something about that, and what the president of the United States was saying, something in the UK. I'm gonna get at that. I'm gonna look at that, and maybe I can cover that tomorrow and what that means, break that down for you, because I think that's signaling something. And again, because it is the United Kingdom, how can that trickle down here to us at the Cayman Islands, real Michelle? So that's exactly what that article was. So much stuff coming in, to be honest, and you just got to almost separate beautiful lies, ugly truth. It's good to see the young Iranians standing up to the evil regime. However, it's sad that they have to do this. They don't have a choice. I hope that that'll never get to us here, to be honest. And this is why, gosh, but it feels like these people that part of the world have been fighting from a time I could have come up to understanding and being aware of what's happening in the world. I mean, you always heard those part of the world constantly fighting. And oh my goodness, it's like from generation to generation. And I hope to God that that never is the case here. But if we don't start speaking up, my love, oh my God. Keith, how are you, my dear? Trump and the military intelligence know that Russia has plans to attack the United States, and that is why they need total control of Greenland to build their military base there. Well, how quick that can go up based on the look at the pace and things are happening, Keith. Not to tell you that it's not truthful, but for them to do that, don't they have some sort of a base there already? Based on what I'm hearing from some, I guess to expound it, I don't know. Again, it's a developing story. Let's see how that unfolds. Yes. Thank you very much. Rosie Rose, how are you? Good evening. Happy New Year to you as well. It's always good to have you join us. Harry, what's bollocks? The U.S. has full military across Greenland. I know I saw something. Harry, thank you for confirming that. They do have. The Danish government has even offered to make the base in Greenland sovereign. Yes, Harry, you're right. I saw that. So that was Keith. Yeah, you're answering Keith. Keith, yeah, I know I wasn't going crazy. They actually have a base there already, so it's not adding up. Yes, I know, Michelle. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Yes, I got it. Sometimes with all the information coming in, I mean, that went over, but trust me, I go back over the comments at night as well. And Harry also said, the U.S. has reduced its military presence 99% since 1991. So, interesting. Harry also said, this whole idea that the U.S. needs Greenland for national security is total bollocks, but you said crap. It was made up by the Trump administration. The real Michelle Teresa. Thank you. You're welcome. Now let's get into the topic, and I want you to participate. Some of you comment. I don't mind you calling in. It does help to just keep it in context and to just have another voice there. It really, really helps. I'm going to tell you, I see the UK dropped the digital ID. We covered that the other day. We did that as a breaking news of the Have You Heard segment. Again, that's power of the people. Now let's start with the employee side of things. And anywhere during this, if something pops up or you have a story to share, please, by all means, join in on the conversation. What we notice here in Cayman is that it is obvious. We're a diverse workforce. We have locals, we have expatriates working side by side, and Caymanians and expatriates so close. Many of us share offices, of course, the construction sites, classrooms, and even hospitals. Whether you are an employee in this case or someone accessing service, I'm going to tell you, based on what we're seeing here in our country, you're going to cross paths with an expat. However, what we're seeing with that diversity can be twisted into division. we're seeing, just like other jurisdictions, where natives of their own country are fighting with their life to protect what's theirs, for respect of their identity, their country, their rights, their citizens, but there's a balance as well. Sometimes what we're seeing now in defending that stance becomes a dividing line. And many Caymanians, we have heard it on many platforms, may feel sidelined. You see it in the workplace. You may feel belittled. You may feel as though you're treated as though, they're less qualified, even though they may have been doing a role for a number of years. Because they don't look a certain way, they don't speak a certain way, they're automatically felt as though you're not good enough. On the flip side, expatriates now, too, can feel targeted as outsiders. And they can feel blamed for taking jobs. We see it. We hear it. Bullying here, as I said in the opening, isn't always loud. It can be an exclusion from even meetings, derogatory and defamatory statements or remarks, or being loaded with extra work sometimes simply because of where you're from. And Caymanians may hear comments that questions their competence or be excluded from opportunities because of stereotypes. How do we strike the balance in defending and standing up for your own rights without being labeled as a bully because you're standing up for your rights, because you may be outnumbered? How do you do that? And what we're also seeing is expatriates may be ridiculed as outsiders because they were favored for a job for whatever reasons over a Caymanian. Where the Caymanians are lashing out is that they're saying we're seeing far too much of us being excluded, far too much of Caymanians not even being given a chance. And that's where then we're seeing a fight back in nationality becoming a power tool. And it's used to elevate one group while diminishing another. What is so interesting with how it's unfolding, though, as we can see, based on talks, based on, I'm seeing reels being posted of persons lashing out, is that it's the same thing from both sides. It's the same thing being tossed from the locals and the expatriates. Now, let me just give you a little story. A Caymanian employee told me that they were repeatedly left out of training sessions, with colleagues joking that locals don't need development. What is your take on that? Is it because a lot of the managers are not originally from here, and Caymanians then are felt that this is your home, I may come from a different side of the world, it's harder for me to live in another man's country, so let's exclude you, let me build myself up? Devil's advocate here. That's not fair. Straight up, when I heard it, it's not fair. This Caymanian was left out of training sessions. And it was like, where do I go? Who do I turn to? Because everyone that I go to, they weren't locals, so they felt that they would not have been understood. That's the dynamics in the workplace. But on the flip side, I also heard from an expatriate worker who described being mocked for one, their accent, because they actually were working hard. They were actually being favored of elevation. And they also were told that they never truly belong here. Why are you here? Whilst one, the Caymanian or Caymanians, not all, would walk around almost just saying, I am from here. Who are you? It is almost like having the conversation about religion and politics. It's really hard. When you have a local who almost is weaponizing, as I'm saying, because I'm Caymanian, that they just go around dropping that word here and there. But yet, when they look at themselves and their behavior in the workplace, it is actually leaving a bad taste in the brand Cayman. Because when you look at job performance, they're not on their A game. They're not on their A game. So it is a balance. I'm not telling you that Caymanians are not sidelined. I have worked in organizations where I've seen it myself, surrounded by locals. And amongst ourselves, we're actually fighting down ourselves. And it's obvious one has the ability, the workman abilities to do the job, but for whatever reason, you've been kept back because you're really not liked by a supervisor or one has been there longer than you. But when it becomes a nationality struggle and you're going to use the brand flag of Cayman just to bully people, when you take stock of your attitude, this is not coming after Caymanians. This is specific to a particular story that was shared with me. You do not reflect the entire Caymanian workforce. And I'm not going to stand here and say that far enough Caymanians have been pushed aside and feel as though they're less just because. But a lot of the times, it's because they're outnumbered in the workplace. And this is why we have had an immigration reform that is trying to curtail that. But at the end of the day, if you ask some of our Caymanian employers, which I've had multiple conversations, even those persons who need minor repairs around their homes, they would prefer to call a reputable company versus a small mom and pop Caymanian-owned company to say, let me help my own. There's always a delay. There's always some excuse, or it started and not finished. And sometimes based on who you are calling, the fees is just astronomical. Taking it back to the workplace now. This is not for or against any nationality. This is just, we have to survive, both as employees and employers, and we have a job to do. But weaponizing yourself as being Caymanian, not coming to work on time, always bullying in a subtle manner your co-workers, even some of your own Caymanians, is not a good branding on us as well. I'm not here to scold a soul. I'm just here to put it into perspective. Because more and more, in certain industries more than others, there's one thing about standing up for your rights. There's one thing about defending your job over these foreigners. But there's another thing when it comes to self-reflection as well. There are a lot of Caymanian employers out there who have had and who has some excellent Caymanian employees. But you see the thing called familiarity, it kind of sometimes take away from what you're supposed to do. And with expatriates who doesn't know your who their employer is. They don't have that childhood connections. You will find that their work ethics sometimes are better than locals because of familiarity. That, my friends, is sometimes because of the very same size and nature of our small island development countries. This is nothing wrong. It is common, sorry. It is common in our jurisdictions. It is very common, but it shouldn't be used. It shouldn't be used to bully. And I am telling you, if this stone has hit you, even your Caymanians are a little disappointed in that workplace with how you're behaving yourself. And I am quite sure you know exactly who I'm talking about. I have got numerous of complaints. And this thing of this badge of honor, waving this Caymanian flag of being proud, yes, I'm the first to be there. But you have to be careful how you're doing it. Because when you're looking for help and support, you're going to be alone. And I think that has become a reality. Good evening, caller. Welcome to Sabrina Speaks. What's on your mind?
Good evening, Sabrina. I am so I feel very bad to interrupt your role there. I think you were hitting all the right notes, asking the right questions. But you did say, well, if you want to call, just call me. Don't be afraid to interrupt me. So I'm just using that little freedom that you gave us. Now, you know, Sabrina, abuse, bullying at the workplace is something which even I, in the past, were not really very conscious of, because there are these things that, for example, certain bosses do, and they do that under cover of, or I am the manager of the office, I have to, kick a little behind in order for the thing, for the department to run very well.
Mm-hmm.
But then what happens is that a lot of times they overstep their bounds.
Uh-huh.
And when they overstep their bounds, it then becomes very difficult for people to say, look, you are bullying this particular employee. Why? Because they're saying, no, but I'm just trying to manage. And that's where sometimes it is very difficult to do. For example, there are cases where you've got, I know of one case. This is when I was in the Cayman government. I know of a case where there was one employee who was very candid about their views.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, you go into a meeting and they say an issue arises, and they say they are very candid,
Mm-hmm.
Now maybe the head of department might say, well, I really don't agree with that. But sometimes they would be those kinds of people who would throw in a rejoinder. The boss has said what he or she says, but they throw in a rejoinder to disagree with the boss a little bit, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Just to engage them more. But after the decision is made, they accept the decision, okay?
Uh-huh.
And yet, when the time came now to assess that particular employee, under the category which says something like, does this employee respect the hierarchy in the office?
Mm-hmm.
They were assessed as saying, oh no, this employee doesn't respect the hierarchy in the office. Do you see?
Right.
Just because you are being candid, that now is being viewed more or less as you are being insubordinate.
A troublemaker.
If once the decision, a troublemaker, and yet really you are candid, and sometimes you can push your boundaries a little bit, but at the end of the day you are expressing a view, and once a decision is made, you accept the decision. So to me, once you accept the decision, you shouldn't be assessed as not respecting the hierarchy. To me, that is office bullying, because then what you are trying to tell the other person is, well, look, I mean, I don't like your views. And I think that's a problem. And one of the issues with that is that it's very difficult to deal with.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I don't recall in the Cayman government whether you could appeal an assessment. I know in one organization I worked in a very, very long time ago, once an assessment is made of you, and if you think there's something in there that amounts to bullying or which you think is not fair, there was a provision by which you could appeal your assessment to a small committee, and they could, look at it again and maybe give you a better assessment. But I don't recall that in the Cayman Islands there was that possibility.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing is what I have seen in Cayman, and I think you've alluded to that a little bit, is that when a Caymanian is being bullied in the office,
Mm-hmm.
I have found that they do not enjoy a lot of protection, even from the Caymanians who might be their boss's boss. You understand?
Okay.
Because I don't know why this is. I don't know if it is indeed in Cayman culture. I'm slow to say it's in Cayman culture. I think it is more that the fewer Caymanians there are in the office,
Mm-hmm.
the workplace, the fewer Caymanians there are, the more likely that even if they are being bullied, their fellow Caymanians, even those, as I've said, their bosses, are very slow to come in and say, no, you can't do this. It's like,
So
well, we don't want to.
What you're describing to me then is that more than likely the Caymanians would side with the foreign nationals and not defend that Caymanian. Is that what I'm getting?
Exactly.
What happens
And
now for balance when what I have constantly been getting reports on is that in this particular case, this is why I'm trying to bring a balanced discussion. There's one individual who constantly goes around flaunting, I'm Caymanian, but when they do self-check, it's like they're weaponizing that nationality of being Caymanian. So it's not like they're performing to the best of their ability either.
Yeah.
What happens, and that's becoming very toxic. And I have got numerous reports, numerous. It's actually a bullying till even Caymanians are not are not liking the way the individual is conducting themselves, because it's also giving a reputation on them in this particular organization.
Yes, that can be a problem. There will be those people who think, or at least behave in a manner suggesting that they enjoy, or rather that they do not have to conduct themselves in a certain way because they are Caymanian, it's my country and so on and so forth. But again, that is something that you can be assertive about without crossing the line.
Right.
You see, part of the problem in the Cayman Islands is that, you see, Caymanians have been forced to apologize for being Caymanian.
Correct. For years. Now it's reached a boiling point where we're almost apologizing for defending ourselves, which is why I'm trying to have a balanced discussion, but seeing the realities from both sides. Because I know genuinely in some workplaces, Caymanians have had to stand their ground to defend their right to fight for promotion. And it is real. It is real. But then on the other hand, you have those who are not performing, who are weaponizing it. And it continues to give the Caymanians who are really working hard a bad name.
Yeah. And let me give you an example of a case where a Caymanian, in my view, was bullied, was never defended by the boss's boss. And last time I heard about that matter, that hasn't really stopped. What happened with that Caymanian is that they came to a certain department. They wanted to learn a particular kind of job. And then the head of department told them, okay, let me be more, I won't mention a name, but let me mention this happened in the department I used to be in, but I won't mention a name. What happened was a person came in and wanted to learn how to write legislation. They had done some court work, but they wanted to see if they could learn how to write legislation to see if they would like it.
Right.
When they came in, I told the head of department, I said, you know what, I haven't trained anybody for a long time. Can you give me this person to train? Now, again, not out of personal aggrandizement, Sabrina, I've got a very good background of training people in legislative drafting. Right now, I train lawyers in Canada how to write legislation. I used to go to an institute in Rome in the 90s called the Institute of International Development Law, where I used to teach legislative drafting. That's how I first met my first Caymanian. who was Julian Banks, the late Julian Banks, who was the wife to
Right. It's
Loxley
Loxley
Banks.
Banks' wife.
Okay,
Mhm.
Mr. Exactly, who's I believe a sister to Woody DaCosta and so on. But anyway, so what happened is, so I do have a background without going into much detail, and I write a lot about that internationally as well. So I said, look, give me this Caymanian to train. You know what the head of department said? The head of department said, no, you can't. You can't train this Caymanian. I said, well, but why not? You know what she told me? She told me that I was not fit to train anybody.
Just to block
With
you from
all that
training that Caymanian. That was a
exactly.
block.
I mean, that was without again self-aggrandizement. I have achieved more as a lawyer and as a trainer, as a drafter, more than her. Without, I wouldn't even get into the more than that head of department. But now, because I wanted to train a Caymanian, suddenly now you are not fit enough to train a Caymanian. But of course, the reason was because they just wanted to keep her down. Now, as if that was not enough, then she told the Caymanian, we want you first to go and get a master's degree in legislative studies before we start training you locally. Now, in fairness to the chief officer who used to be there, the chief officer said, look, yes, this person, we can provide an opportunity for them to go and train and get a master's, but surely that shouldn't prevent them from starting to train in the office. That looks like you, but to be fair, that was a status holder. Chief officer. But the head of department refused. We are not going to train her. Mr. Sinamba is not going to train her. She will have to go and get a master's degree before we can start training her. Now, you know what is the most stupid thing about that? This same head of department who was telling this Caymanian that you need to get a master's first, she herself, the head of department, doesn't have a master's.
Okay.
Yeah. So you don't have a master's, you can even become a head of department. How can you say that somebody who is just starting to train, that you can't even start to tell them how the job is done until they get a master's degree? To me, that is office place bullying. You are bullying the person.
Which leads to, how do you defend that when it's your own? But yet we're doing sweeping legislation to protect it, but the behaviors then kind of questions our own survivability. And then you will have some who weaponize it, which goes back to the conversation.
Yeah. And to me, it's good that you mentioned that, because what happened is when this thing came to a head, this Caymanian then complained to the boss's boss. I won't mention which particular boss's boss, but complained to a particular boss's boss. You know what that particular boss's boss said? Said, you have to accept the management decisions of your head of department. Now, to me, that's ridiculous, because to me, the boss's boss, who was Caymanian, should have said, hey, head of department, one, we have a policy in the government that Caymanian must be trained. So you have no right to tell somebody that they cannot be trained until they do X. And therefore, I'm giving an instruction to you, can this person be trained? As far as I'm concerned, the person who is offered to train this person, from what we see from their resume, they are fit to train. I'm giving you an instruction. Can this person begin to be trained? That's what I expected the boss's boss, who's Caymanian, to do. But she just
in defense.
The boss's boss said
in defense.
Yeah, in defense. Yeah, But the boss's boss just said, well, just accept those decisions. It was one of the first cases, Sabrina, which got me into this issue, because I saw my Caymanian friends being persecuted together with me, with all my background. I was also now being told that you are not fit to train anybody, when arguably, I was the best qualified legislative drafter, and certainly the best known in the Commonwealth in that office. And yet I was being told as well, you have no, right to, you've got no competence to train anybody. So those are the issues. So to conclude this segment, there is a problem, I think, among certain Caymanian bosses who don't know how to protect their turf.
Yes.
I'll give you they don't know how to protect their turf. For example, one time another big boss was asked, why are you spending money training expatriates? You're spending government money to train expatriates. You know what this Kenyan big boss said? Said, no, but I can't stop anybody from being trained. What do you mean you can't stop anybody from being trained? In other countries, it's a policy. You do not use local money to train an expatriate. Like an expatriate is supposed to come to your country to do two things. One, to do the job that a local can't do, and where there's a Caymanian to train that Caymanian. So there is a lack also of proper ideological direction. I really very much agree with Roy Borden on this. Lack of ideological direction. I would love to take some Caymanian bosses to the country where I came from, which is a so-called independent country, how we used to do these things. Let me mention also, I loved hearing a number of Caymanians on radio recently saying, why are you asking us? Why can't you? If I say that I'm as a Caymanian, I'm entitled. Yes, there are certain things I'm entitled to as a Caymanian. It doesn't mean that I don't have to work hard and so on. But if I am qualified to do a job, and I am entitled to it before the foreigner takes it. I mean, so entitlement is there, but it has to be the right kind of entitlement. Yes, I'm entitled to be considered first and to be given the job if I'm qualified, but I'm not entitled to a job that I'm not qualified for. And this is one thing that I really hate when I listen to people sometimes talk about entitlement, because
it all depends on the balance, because what we're seeing right now is nationality. We're seeing the impacts of divider and morale suffering because of nationality. When it's used as when your nationality is used as a divider, you realize the impact that it has on morale and the environment, even in the office.
Yeah, you know, in Canada, you can't draft legislation for government unless you are a Canadian. They don't say that a Canadian will be given preference. They have just got a rule that you can't draft legislation in Canada unless you're a Canadian citizen, period. Okay? Why? Because there is a way they see that job should only be for Canadians because of its sensitivity and the need for people who are doing that job to be loyal. But if you look at Cayman, there is apparently no appreciation of how important it is that those positions such as DPP and other civil legal jobs in government should go to Caymanians. Look at today, they had the opening of the Grand Court, right? And I watched a lot of that. It didn't look like you were in Cayman. It looked like you were either in England or in Jamaica. Okay, so would you be surprised if some of those people there would bully the local people? They are likely to do that because they are now the majority in the workplace, and that is a problem. But let me see if I can mention some other thing which is related to this same bullying thing.
But I wanted to tie that into what we're seeing with the climate of cost of living as well, and even from the perspective of employers. Into seeing, and we're seeing where a number of our households now are under tremendous strain because we're seeing the talks are still about cost of living and all of this, and we don't know what persons are shouldering. What you were speaking to in regards to what you experienced in your previous roles, how much years was that? And here we are in 2026. With the global geopolitical tensions, with the realities of cost of living not going anywhere, and we're still fighting to, one, hold on to a job, remain relevant in our roles, fight for upward mobility, and fearful of not being accepted.
Yeah, you see, for me, I see the way I see some of these things is also, there is, the government is trying to do its best to improve cost of living and those things. But the other thing that I find to be a problem is that some of the institutions in the Cayman Islands who are bullying people. I think some of the prosecutions that are done in the Cayman Islands, they are intended to bully people. Okay. I will mention the current prosecution of Sandra Hill. I think is an attempt to bully people, and I think that the state's power should not be used to bully people.
Do you
And I
feel
think
that
what
is why people are remaining silent and like public speaking right now? It's like they're intimidated.
Exactly. And I want to touch this range of laws in relation to what you've just raised. You see, there are these laws which are on the books, such as the harassment law.
Mm-hmm.
The harassment law, which is section 88A and 88B, uppercase A, uppercase B of the Penal Code, is a very broad law, just like section 90 of the ICTA law, because they say that you cannot use by any writing, electronic means or whatever, you cannot harass somebody else, intentionally or unintentionally, you cannot harass. Those are very, very broad laws. And they tried to get Sandra on that in the case that she won. And what the court there said was, look, these laws are very broadly stated. So you have to be careful the way you apply them. Sometimes you can find that what somebody has done, like it satisfies the ingredients of the offense, but still you have to say, if we charge them, is that really proportionate considering what happened? And they laid down a very detailed test. I would urge people to go to Sandra's show from Monday. In the last 15, 20 minutes, she had a little lesson there of how the court dealt with the matter, and it's not done in a legalistic manner. It is done in a very nice. It's done nicely for everybody to be able to understand. And to me, the people who are bullying at the moment more than anybody else, it is the institutions themselves. Last week,
who is running those institutions and who's the head of their human resources? Many a times are either persons who have acquired Caymanian citizenship by way of the PR system, Caymanian status, and sometimes many of HR professionals are not even permanent resident holders. And I know go ahead.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. They are not, and this is why this immigration law it does not quite do what, in my view, I think it should be doing. But
remember, this is only phase one. This is only phase one.
Yeah, it's only phase one, but already what they've reduced to writing and cast in stone, some of it is not really right. But some other people might be able to speak to that. Now. Last week there was this week, I think it was last week or this week, CMR carried a story about how a court issued an order against me to say that I was stalking somebody and all that. And to me, that prosecution was a bullying exercise. It was a bullying exercise. In a nutshell, basically what happened is very simple. It's very simple. I'm in a strata. I own some property there. I fell into arrears on some of the strata fees. We went to court. They were trying to sell my apartment. The court said, no, you've got no authority to sell the apartment. And then after that matter ended, this lady continued, who was the executive member of the committee, continued incurring bills with a lawyer while making further attempts to sell my apartment. Okay? She was incurring bills. I mean, they came to something like 28,000, and she was just incurring. And every time she incurs them, she would send them to me. Every time she incurs them, she sent them to me. Now, I also took the department to the strata to court for trespassing on my property. I also won that, and I was awarded costs as well. So in other words, I owed costs which were still to be assessed, and the strata also owed me costs to be assessed. But before they were assessed, this person was sending me these as bills which I should pay. So what I told her was, look, lady, you've got a right to send me bills to collect monthly strata fees, which are being paid slowly so that they can be eliminated. I have no problem. That's your job. you have a right to do that. But don't send me these other bills, which are legal bills, because you are incurring them. They have not been approved by the court. In fact, we had a hearing, which is still pending, where we are supposed to go to court so that these can be assessed. So you can't send me these bills because they are not yet legal. You know what she did? For 18 months, she kept sending me every month these bills and incurring even more and more. Eventually, I lost my temper. I gave her some choice words. You know, after I gave her some choice words, she goes to the police. The police issue an arrest warrant against me without even talking to me. Then after they issue the arrest warrant, as if that's not enough, then she went to court through her lawyer to say that I was stalking her. Now, that's where the discussion now is. When we went to court, what did the judge do? The judge says, well, yes, you were stalking her. You know what I told the judge? I said, Judge, what she was doing in sending me bills which I did not owe, that amounted to harassment under Section 88A and 88B of the Penal Code. Okay, she is not supposed to do that. Particularly, she was asked to stop doing that. She did not stop. She continued. I asked her repeatedly to stop. She did not, and eventually I got mad and I had some very choice words for her. Now, they used those choice words for her to say you are stalking her. Now, what I told the judge, I said, you know what, before you decide whether I'm stalking anybody or not, you have to comment on her behavior. Do you think her behavior was provocative? You know what the judge did? He totally ignored the way she behaved. He totally ignored that. He basically said, well, she was still acting within her power. She wasn't acting within her power. That is fucking, that is stupid for the judge to say that, because you do not have power to try and collect fees which you are not owed. Okay? To me, the judge misused his authority. He was basically trying to bully me into a position where I was supposed to accept that whatever somebody does, I cannot be protected. And so what I have done is I've appealed that matter. I think it is a case of both the police and the judge bullying a member of the public in a matter which is very simple and straightforward. And by the way, I tried to have her charged for sending me those bills. You know what the police told me 2 days ago? They told me, we can't charge you. We can't charge her because this is a civil dispute which was taking place around the strata matter. But then when she went to the police and they wanted me charged, they charged me. They didn't tell her, oh no, this is a civil dispute. We can't charge anybody criminally. Do you see what I mean? Mm. In relation to the same matter, they told me they couldn't charge her. Why? Because it's a civil dispute. But when she went to the police, they would charge me because they said, well, this is a criminal matter. Do you see? To me, that's bullying.
Oh, wow.
You are misusing authority. And at the end of the day, basically, what I ask people in Cayman to do is this. Are you happy with this range of laws which are very broadly defined? Harassment under the Penal Code, harassment under the ICTA law, stalking under the stalking law, which are very broad and can easily be used to bully people. Are you happy with this? And are you happy with a judge who will look at a matter? After they look at the matter, they only look at what you did. They do not look at the other side, that the other side was being passively aggressive. Mm-hmm. Okay. And I ask people that in a case like this, don't look at the morality of it. The morality of it, maybe you might disagree with me that maybe I said things which were really very strong language, but that's the morality of it.
There was a question.
But
there was a question being asked. How can one stalk someone when they don't live here? Denver asked the question.
Well, that's another very good question. In fact, what happened was this part around the strata, it ended in May 2025. It ended after this lady sold out her apartment and then she left the apartment. So I had no business to deal with her. She had no business to deal with me. That was in May last year. And since then, she never sent me any email and I never sent her any email. I never contacted her in any way. But do you know when she got this stalking order? She got it in December. In other words, 7 months after. How many people have had a spat which ended 7 months after, and then a judge comes up 7 months later to say that we want you to be arrested, and also that there should be a prohibition against you getting in touch with her. I haven't been in touch with her for 7 months. Okay. And she hasn't been in touch with me for 7 months. Do you see? So people should ask themselves, do they want these kinds of laws to remain on the statute book without some checks? Do they want judges who are operating in these offices to behave in this way? And the other thing I'll tell you, Sabrina, I asked the judge, I said, okay, I'm filing an appeal regarding this matter. Can you give me a record of the proceedings? They told me that they did not have the Zoom recording, the video recording. They did not have any audio recording. They did not have even a handwritten or typed written recording. They did not have even judge's notes. There's absolutely nothing. Mm-hmm. And that is contrary to the law. Under the law, it says that the Grand Court is a court of record. A court of record means everything must be recorded. Mm-hmm. There are so many things that are wrong with that. I think that the government should issue some directives regarding how to prosecute cases of this nature. I think, for example,
Mr. Balika, in all honesty, sir, in all honesty, your question lies, how can the Caymanian think that these legislations that you're alluding to that is so broad if we're satisfied? How can locals know whether or not they can be satisfied or not when many a times, first time ever, line by line, people are even aware in our society of what some of the legislation really say? It's only recently that we're actually doing this line by line. So what you are actually referring to, really, unless you're a learned person in the legal field, and you now in your particular situation is being in this matter, you're looking at legislation for what they are, with maybe the exception of Denny and maybe even Siobhan with certain things. You understand, the common Caymanian is not going to even be aware of what some of our legislation says and the implications that will have on them, how wide open, the amount of loopholes that are there. And we're the only ones that are really putting the spotlight on a lot of things based on some of the subjects that we're covering. Hence, I started to do the informational civic engagement education on the Constitution.
Yeah. You see, these are the things, because you see, a lot of us will only get to know about them maybe when it happens to us.
Exactly.
But otherwise, these laws are like a loaded gun which is out there and can go off and shoot anybody
and
at any time.
Until you need to be defended, to stand for your rights, you lash out, not even realizing lashing out may actually be used against you defending your own stance because of how loose, how broad of interpretation a piece of legislation that you're thinking is there to protect you is really wide open. May the best man win, be it the defense or the prosecutor. Yeah. It's who gets the best argument at court that will determine the outcome.
Who determine the outcome? And what I'm disappointed with in relation to the public authorities is also that they appear not to have taken seriously the guidance which was given by the Court of Appeal in the Sandra Hill case. In that case, they were very careful. They said, you know what? Even if something appears to fall within the letter of the law, you must remember that those rights, the fundamental rights and freedoms under the Cayman Constitution, are, generally speaking, are protected by the they are buttressed by the European Convention on Human Rights, the decisions of the European Court of Human Rights, the decisions of the European Commission on Human Rights. So they say that you must always ensure that you are applying them proportionately. Instead of the government now trying, for example, to prosecute Sandra under another section just to see if they can maybe have a different result, in my view, what they are charging her with now is not fundamentally different from what they charged her with earlier, because it's harassment. Earlier, they charged her with under Section 90 of the ISTA law. Now they are charging her under Section 88A or 88B of the Penal Code. But both provisions have to do with harassment. So to me, whatever principles were enunciated in her court case, they would apply to prevent the prosecution which they are trying to do against her this time. So if the court has already given guidance on it, what government should do now is issue maybe a circular or some further amendments to the law to say that these laws must be applied in accordance with the European Convention of Human Rights.
Mm-hmm.
But rather than do that, what they are doing now is they are ignoring that guidance. They are trying to gamble now to bully somebody and to say, well, let's see if we can charge her under a different section and see if we are going to be successful. To me, that is wrong. Once the principle has been enunciated, then you must know that it will apply generally to a certain class of legislation and ensure that you protect people.
Mm-hmm.
That's why I still believe as well that I don't know if they have this yet. There is need for a proper guidance, a proper manual to guide how prosecutions are done. I can tell you, Sandra, I believe I'm capable of distinguishing moral issues and legal issues. They should never have charged Mr. Makiva Bush on certain of the offenses they charged him. Like the last one, which the ladies wanted to withdraw the charges. They said, we do not want to proceed with this. But somebody in there wanted him so bad that they charged him. Now, I believe he shouldn't have been charged with that. I also believe that his earlier case of him fighting with a cell phone with some lady there, I do not believe that one they should have charged him either. That was a 50-50 and so forth. So there is need for proper guidance on how you charge people. Because I don't see, for example, one case which I really keep citing is a case of a paralegal in the portfolio of legal affairs. A lady I knew a little bit, didn't know her very well because we were in different sections. They charged her with withholding a file because they said, she held the file for more than 6 months. It was involving her son. And as a result, the period during which the son would have been charged for a certain offense expired. But you know what happened? When she got that file, she went and disclosed it to her supervisor. The Crown Counsel said, this is a file. It involves my son. And, like any mother, she went there and she begged and pleaded, please just warn him, don't prosecute him. But she disclosed, I have this file and here it is. But then eventually, she held on to it until the 6 months expired. They charged her with abuse of, with breach of trust. Mm-hmm. First of all, I do not think they should have charged her because she technically, yes, she may have committed the offense, but she disclosed to her superior, and her superior is the one who's supervising her. So if they wanted to charge somebody, usually you charge the bigger fish, don't you? Right. They should have charged him, or they should have charged both of them. But they decided to take the path of least resistance. That lady had been there for 20 years. They ruined her career. Why? Because there's no proper guidance or proper attitude to ensure that, prosecuting decisions are exercised in a manner that is reasonable, in relation to people.
Just how you're describing that with the general laws, it goes back to exactly what we're saying here with the bullying in the workplace, because I saw where there was a question asked, where do I go? Where do I report workplace bullying? Now that would be they were specific, not in breach of labor law. They were specific with workplace bullying. Where do they go?
Yeah, like where do they go? That's very interesting because I know that
it's not for not giving vacation. It's not for working overtime and not being paid. It's not for, in breach of pension or you understand? It was specific. Yeah. Where do you report workplace bullying?
Bullying, yeah, because my first line of inquiry would be to check the civil service.
To me, it would be Labor Board, the DLP. To me, it would be the Department of Labor and Pensions.
Yes, I know there's some court cases where they have said certain people can go to the labor boards. But I think in the government, there's an appeal process there, probably the Civil Service Appeals Commission. Now, in other words, it depends whether you're in
Whether
the
private sector or
public
civil
sector.
servant, right? And what we're
Mhm.
finding right now with where we're seeing
Yeah.
tensions heating, where the
Mhm.
climate is becoming almost in some cases uncontrollable, is when
Mhm.
let me see if I can add another WhatsApp call. Is when you're private sector. Oh Lord, I think I cut him off. Jimbo, I put you on and I cut off Mr. Balika. That's what happens. Oh, sorry. But I think in continuing with the conversation, I'm feeling what is happening right now is in the private sector is the amount of weaponizing is the word that I'm using is happening right now. And people don't know where to turn and it's becoming rather toxic. And that is what we're feeling. Go ahead, Jim. Weigh in because Mr.
Hey, how
Balika
are you,
can call
Sabrina?
back. I'm fine. Thank you. Better today, I must say.
Excellent. You sound better, but you always sound good.
Thank you.
No, when you're asking where do you go, I mean, from my experience, it's very frustrating. You know, things happen at work and you want to make reports. You have all the documentation, you've got pictures, you've got everything, and you take it to the Department of Labor and Pensions. You take it to WRC, and at the end of the day, what happens? It's very frustrating. It's very grueling. It's time consuming. You have to be on it and stay on it. But at the end of the day, what do? Slap somebody on the wrist. So, you know, from my experience and what was happening, there was every breach that you could possibly think of with the labor law and the bullying that was allowed by his girlfriend, who was also on a work permit, the staff was just ridiculous. So people were just constantly being used and abused, and nothing was really done. He did get a fine, which from what I heard, wasn't a very large fine. But then he also lied to Sandra when he contacted her to let her know that everything I had to say was nothing but a bold-faced lie. But I had all my receipts.
To show otherwise.
Right. And she told him that he could come on the show. He could bring his receipts to back his statements up. But of course, he didn't have any receipts because he was a liar.
But you went through the whole process through the Department of Labor and Pensions, connected all the dots with your receipts and everything. And what you have shared this experience on this platform in the very earlier days. What would be your takeaway synopsis from that?
All I can say is I was really, really disappointed. And what I knew when he asked me to stay on after the business was sold to him, he only had residency. He did not have status. How he ended up with status after the report, or I don't know, but it just seemed a little odd to me because I was put off and put off and put off. And then all of a sudden, after all of this happened and I got answers, he had a status.
Already granted, so you couldn't even put that in to be used as something for the board to consider because it was still a pending matter.
It was, and it kept on being delayed.
Your case was a pending matter, yeah.
Yeah, it just kept on going to this department, to that department, to the other department, and nothing was being done. I had to make multiple phone calls. I was questioned numerous times. You know, I had given everything and anything. But, you know, at the end of the day, little to none was done. He's still in business. He's still doing whatever he does with his unscrupulous behaviors, business matters. And it's just very, very frustrating to think that you can have all the information, you can take it and go through the proper channels and do what you need to do. But at the end of the day, are the people in these places doing what they're supposed to do?
Which would be what I refer to as the gatekeepers, going back again to the enforcers of the legislation and not working in silos. Because
Exactly.
if there were communication between one department to the other, do you not, what I'm getting from what your story is that maybe that pending application would have been deferred, but then that would have,
as it should have been based on the first time I reported it.
but look, Jim, here we go again. The law and the mandate of the board, the Status and Permanent Residency Board, in regards to this matter, is that they are making a decision based on the information that is before them at that time. So if you have glowing references and the board at the time of decision making is unaware of what is transpiring, can you blame them for making the decision that they made?
But
I'm just asking the question.
Right. That's where I brought it up to the officer at WRC, that the computer system should be able to talk to each other.
Correct.
But they say it's privacy matters.
Freedom of information and yeah.
Right. And even after it was settled, I couldn't even get anything from FO, what is it called? FO?
The FOI, under the Freedom of Information.
Yes. I couldn't even get any information on from them what the finalization of the situation was.
Mm-hmm. Oh wow.
I mean, I wasn't in any grievances on my behalf. It was for the staff that was being treated unfairly, not getting their overtime, not getting treated the way they should have been treated. You know, it was just crazy. It was absolutely crazy, insanity. And I can understand why people don't pursue doing what they need to do because of the outcomes.
But then that is where public forums like this and you actually proving a flaw in the system that highlights the importance of one department speaking to the other. And then you have legislation that protects the information. This department saying, well, this is my information. I cannot expose this information, is where we have to, and it goes back to what Mr. Balika was saying, the legislation, the regulations. Yeah. And I'm going to be very honest with you. Working in silos don't help situations like this. Because to me, a part of internal investigations and due diligence should actually be done across government departments as well to see if there are any, especially the DLP, if there are any pending cases that, let's say, person A or organization B that this person has a vested interest in has any pending cases. Because when you look at the criteria for one to decide on an application, be it permanent residence, status on the grounds of residency, naturalization, or descent, or whatever, it does have the guidance and guidelines and character, conduct, and all of those things are used to be taken into consideration. But if the departments, and in this case, the boards, the secretariats, are not, for whatever behind the scenes, have information, sharing information as a part of the due diligence process, besides that of a medical and a police record, this is what's going to happen.
Yeah. So like I said, he got a slap on the wrist, he got a small fine, and back to doing business as usual. And it's most unfortunate because what he did to staff was outrageous. It should have never happened to the staff. And allowing his girlfriend, who, like I said, is on a work permit, to do what she did and get away with what she did was just absolutely mind-boggling to me. And that's where it all came to a head between he and I. I literally stepped out of character during all of this and let him have it. I'm glad he wasn't standing in front of me at the time because I would have probably been arrested.
But do you see the personality that brought out into you? And this is what we're probably seeing into certain other workplace environments where somebody has reached a boiling point. And it brings out a character, not that we're defending it, Jim, you understand? But I can see it from both sides. And then you have a system, having a system that doesn't appear to really be doing what it should for its people. Is where where people or Caymanians and anyone who need protections based on legislation are feeling, what's the sense?
Well, here I'm going to go back to immigration. Here we've allowed so many different nationalities come into the country and to take over and run certain things in the country. And that's where I think the Caymanians are having difficulty understanding and feeling left out and being kicked to the curb. Well, I can say the same thing for the U.S., Sabrina.
Mm-hmm.
The immigration was a free-for-all. And now, because of what's happened and the fraud, just all the stuff that's going on in the U.S.,
Mm-hmm.
I can understand why now there is such a major crackdown on immigration. The U.S. or the American taxpayer is not being taken care of. Everybody else and their mother is.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And that's what I mean. People can say what they want to say. I'm not a Trumpster. I'm not over here rah-rah-ree for Trump. No, but I understand the situation with the immigration right now, crackdown in the U.S.
Right.
And people need to understand, if you don't live it, breathe it, eat it, see it,
you don't understand it.
No. And I know how it affects the American people. I know how it affects the elderly. I know how it affects the children. I know how it affects the homeless and the veterans.
There we go. One who feels it knows it.
So here in Cayman, there's certain things that have happened through the immigration process that has kicked the Caymanian to the side, and it's about the almighty dollar in a lot of ways.
Yeah, it's going
and
to.
It's
ahead.
who you know as well. It's who you know as well.
We're at a crossroads for sure, and we're going to need togetherness for this, and we're definitely going to have to keep our eye on the pulse. Accountability keeps coming up, and where there is immigration and legislative period reform, we have to make sure that we educate ourselves, give a fair chance to ventilate it, and be listened and felt, feel as though we're being heard and our voices matter. Thank you, Jimbo.
All right. You have a good evening. Everybody else, take care.
Yes, thank you. Always appreciate your participation.
Bye.
Bye-bye. There we go. I know Mr. Belika, we got 10 minutes, so let's get him back to wrap up. Yeah. Sorry about that. Real Michelle says, thank you, Jimbo. That look at Jimbo is sticking. Hi, sorry about that, sir. We got 10 minutes.
Well, no problem. In fact, I was really interested in what your previous caller was saying because you see, he has been there the way I have been there.
Correct.
You see, he was. If I can just begin with the last point that he made, where he said, "Well, look, people in America might like Trump or not, but this immigration matter has got to a point where even those who don't like him, they think that." There are aspects of that which he's doing right. I'm not quite sure that some of the things happening on the ground are great, but in terms of his approach to get tough on it, you see, in the States, for example, you have got people who, like particularly people in the Black community, who maybe because they were a convicted felon once, they therefore lose entitlement to social assistance. They lose entitlement to cheap government housing and so on. Okay, and yet maybe they might have been found only with a joint or that kind of thing. And yet you get these people who come in, just walk across the border. Okay, some of them are not really genuine refugees. They are just looking for a better life, that the way we all try to do. And then they are put up in a hotel at government expense and living freely, while people who were convicted of a little offense maybe 10 years ago, who are American citizens, some of them who are the so-called FBAs, Foundational Black Americans, they can't get social assistance. I mean, that is why some people, even in the Black community, Trump increased his vote from the black community from the last election because of that. Because immigration, at the end of the day, people always want to ensure that their local people are given preference. Now, the other thing that he mentioned also, the frustration about this person who, in the end, after all these misdeeds, ends up now applying, I think it's for status and so forth. I have seen that.
Well, in this
I
case,
know
that
a
one
case-
got through. In this case, that one got through.
Yes. I know one case of a famous person, again, I won't call a name. This was a lawyer who stole more than $100,000 from their partner. Their partner was Caymanian. Okay? They stole it, and the Caymanian lawyer had the receipts, okay, to show that this person has stolen money from her. And the Caymanian tried to have this person prosecuted. The police refused to prosecute him until finally he applied for status, and he got status.
Oh,
Do you see
wow.
why I said a lot of people are frustrated? Yeah.
Yeah.
In the end, the matter just fizzled out. That's why when you in Cayman, it is very important that Caymanians, to the extent possible, I know the birth rate is the great. To the extent possible, they should be allowed to get into some of these very senior positions. Look at the judges, for example. I spoke earlier about how the opening of the Grand Court looked like it was in England or in Jamaica. I'm not saying that the people who are there have not done a good job, but to me, I think that Caymanians have been actively kept out of certain positions in the judiciary. That's why I was so disappointed that in the new immigration laws, they have said that they want to exempt, or they will exempt people in the judiciary. In other words, if you are an expert judge and you are appointed today, and say you are 45 years, 50 years old, you can stay in that position if you want until you are 70.
You brought that up during the
Caymanians? Exactly. Where are the Caymanians going to get jobs? And what happens in the judiciary is that, you see, they keep Caymanians out of being judges, but then they give them these other administrative jobs or some lower jobs, really establishing that Caymanians are lower class people. I will have to mention the name of Suzanne Bothwell. Suzanne Bothwell could even have been Attorney General, but they never gave her even a position of being Assistant Attorney General, Deputy Attorney General, or even Solicitor General, nothing. And all those positions, I know that Caymanians applied for those positions. But because there are some people who don't want Caymanians in that position, Suzanne then went to the judiciary as courts administrator, which was a promotion. But as a young lawyer at that time with about 16 years experience, young in a sense, I'm sure that she didn't want to do an administrative job, but she ended up there. And then one or two judges' positions opened. They went to two different people. And then after a little while, only to find that she had resigned and she had left. To me, that is somebody who, like, the politicians could have even worked it out in such a way to say, look, why don't we make her a judge now? Once she is a judge, maybe in 4 or 5 years, we can create a position of Deputy Chief Justice. She could become Deputy Chief Justice. That's what they do in other countries. Okay, but we in Cayman, there's not a sufficient appreciation of that. You could even amend the Judicature Act to say that whenever applications for jobs of judges come in, if a Caymanian is qualified, they should be appointed, even if the foreign person might be more qualified. You see, this is the thing I always tell people. I've never met a Caymanian, and I don't think I'll ever meet a Caymanian who tells me that they want a job they are not qualified for. No. Whenever Caymanians talk about give us preference, they are not saying give us jobs we are not qualified for. They are just saying, look, if I am a Caymanian, I've got 5 years experience, I've got the degrees you want, and there are no problems, I'm not a terrible drinker or I over socialize, all the reports are good. And I have, for example, if you require 5 years, I've got 10 years, why don't you give me the job? Even if there's somebody in from the UK with 20 years experience. The country I came from, I became a head of department at the end of 10 years experience. If they had said that I should compete with some of the people who were from England, from India, from Nigeria, I would never have been a head of department. But once they were satisfied that they sent me to England 5 months, I learned how to write legislation. I had also some litigation experience. I was a prosecutor for a little while. I went to Canada to do a master's in legislation. Then I came back at the end of 10 years of training formally as well as working in the office. They gave me the job and I grew in the job.
Mhm.
But in Cayman, we don't do that. In Cayman, we tend to feel, okay, if it's somebody from outside, they don't need to qualify. Let me mention the one which I think I've mentioned this before.
One
you remember
minute.
the last?
You got 1 minute.
The 1 minute, yeah. The last, who is the director of the chief fire officer? Chief fire officer required certain qualifications like a degree or a second degree, which that chief fire officer, the UK one, didn't have. And yet he only had 3 O levels, but they gave him the job. They skipped over Caymanians who had masters in fire science.
Mm-hmm.
That is totally wrong. That won't change by legislation. It will change by attitude. I thank you today. It's been a nice discussion. We'll join up.
There's one
course.
question, though, and I want you to explain it because
Okay.
Miss Melita is asking, and she's been asking, why don't you call names whether or not they're living amongst us? And Melita, no, he's not in the Cayman Islands. But the last question that Miss Melita asks is, why call Suzanne Neem and not the others? And I mean, Suzanne's retirement or her no longer being in public service was public knowledge.
Yeah, okay. Suzanne is because, it is public knowledge, and in any case, she's not in government anymore. So she's unlikely, yeah. But the ones who I didn't call earlier on, because some of them are still in government, there might be some repercussions.
Correct.
That's why.
Thank you. I just wanted you to share that, explain, and then still answer Ms. Melita. But thank you so much.
But you can, if you call me, I'll tell you who they are.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Have a good evening. Always good to participate into these discussions. I know it went all over. I see where some of you are asking, how do you call into the show? 345-936-8255. You can either call direct if you're overseas, WhatsApp as well. But we got to wrap up today's edition of the show. I know we didn't get to ventilate all of the areas, especially from the employer's standpoint. Perspective when it comes to workplace bullying and how hard times, cost of living. I got some stats that can share with you, not to say that we're making excuses, because we're not, but some of these stories and all of the stories, to be honest with you, that have been shared with me are real. And it's very emotive. It's very it's a delicate dance is what I should say, because based on where in the conversation you may actually tune into these episodes, it may sound as though I am against Caymanians. No, I am not. I try my best to present topics and discussions that are rather very emotive and many a times striking a balance based on even giving feedback, talking about legislation that surrounds and protects people's rights and all that sort of stuff. It is rather quite challenging. And I have a duty to protect my sources, but I can assure you a lot of these persons know exactly who I'm talking to. And at the end of the day, I'm hoping that they will take it as a lesson and they will actually make some adjustments. But there's a wider discussion that needs to be had as well in regards to communication from one government department to the next. Hence, I felt that there was a public discussion out that when anybody is applying for Caymanian status, be it on the grounds of marriage or naturalization or on the grounds of even descent, that their pictures be placed in a local media or platform so that persons, should there be any situations that the board can take into consideration, be it good, be it bad, that they have an opportunity to know who's applying. And maybe that through this platform could be something that you champion, but that depends on your feedback. We have heard Jimbo's story. We have heard Mr. Balika's, and it is actually being repeated over and over and over again that people are getting frustrated. And maybe that may be an opportunity for people to actually go back to that system where back in the day, anyone who was applying for the right to be Caymanian status back in those days, they had to actually be placing their pictures in a newspaper. So maybe that's one of the things that is in the phase 2, or maybe because of the regulations not being out there, that could be something that could be included, since this part was heavily focused on Caymanian status as well, right to be Caymanian. Maybe it could be even extended for those persons who are applying for residency, PR, for being here a long time, and spouse of Caymanians as well. You never know. Could be something straight across the board for anything that would lead to permanent tenure. It has been my pleasure bringing you another episode here of Sabrina Speaks. I want to thank you all for your participation, for your contributions, for your calls. Until tomorrow, which I will continue with this discussion about workplace bullying. Please do have a good evening. God bless. Love you all lots. Take care, be safe, and definitely do not withhold your voice, because we are strength and more powerful in numbers. Till tomorrow, take care.
That's a wrap for today's edition of Sabrina Speaks. Thank you for tuning in and for being part of the conversation. Remember, the dialogue doesn't stop here. Stay engaged, stay informed, and most importantly, stay empowered. We'll be back tomorrow at 5 p.m., same time, same place, right here on CMR TV and radio, where your voice matters and your truth is heard. Until then, Cayman, take care of yourself and each other.
That's it for today's edition of Sabrina Speaks, where your voice matters, your story counts, and your truth is always welcome. Join us weekdays from 5 until 6:30 p.m. right here on CMR TV as we dive into the topics that matter most to you. Catch the show live or on demand at cmrtv.com. And don't forget to follow us on Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram so you never miss a moment. Until next time, stay informed, stay engaged, and always speak your truth.